The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock by T.S. Eliot. The poem opens with an epigraph taken from Dante's Divine Comedy, written in Italian. The English translation of the epigraph is as follows. If I thought that my reply would be to someone who would ever return to earth, this flame would remain without further movement. But as no one has ever returned alive from this death, if what I hear is true, I can answer you without the fear of infamy. The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock. Let us go then, you and I, when the evening is spread out against the sky like a patient etherized upon a table. Let us go through certain half-deserted streets, the muttering retreats of restless nights in one-night cheap hotels and sawdust restaurants with oyster shells, streets that follow like a tedious argument of insidious intent to lead you to an overwhelming question. Oh, do not ask, what is it? Let us go and make our visit. In the room, the women come and go, talking of Michelangelo. The yellow fog that rubs its back upon the window panes, the yellow smoke that wraps its muzzle on the window panes, licked its tongue into the corners of the evening, lingered upon the pools that stand in drains, let fall upon its back the soot that falls from chimneys, slipped by the terrace, made a sudden leap, and seeing that it was a soft October night, curled once about the house and fell asleep. And indeed there will be time for the yellow smoke that slides along the street, rubbing its back upon the window panes. There will be time to prepare a face to meet the faces that you meet. There will be time to murder and create, and time for all the works and days of hands that lift and drop a question on your plate. Time for you and time for me, and time yet for 100 indecisions, and for 100 visions and revisions before the taking of a toast and tea. In the room, the women come and go, talking of Michelangelo. And indeed there will be time to wonder, do I dare and do I dare? Time to turn back and descend the stair with a bald spot in the middle of my hair. They will say, how his hair is growing thin, my morning coat, my collar mounting firmly to the chin, my necktie rich and modest, but asserted by a simple pin. They will say, but how his arms and legs are thin. Do I dare disturb the universe? In a minute there is time for decisions and revisions, which a minute will reverse. For I have known them all already, known them all, have known the evenings, mornings, afternoons. I have measured out my life with coffee spoons. I know the voices dying with a dying fall beneath the music from a farther room. So how should I press you? And I have known the eyes already, known them all. The eyes that fix you in a formulated phrase. And when I am formulated, sprawling on a pin, when I am pinned and wriggling on the wall, then how should I begin to spit out all the buttons of my days and ways? And how should I press you? And I have known the arms already, known them all. Arms that are braceleted and white and bare, but in the lamplight downed with light brown hair? Is it perfume from a dress that makes me so digress? Arms that lie along a table or wrap about a shawl? And should I then presume? And how should I begin? Shall I say I have gone at dusk through narrow streets and watched the smoke that rises from the pipes of lonely men in shirt sleeves leaning out of windows? I should have been a pair of ragged claws scuttling across the floors of silent seas. And the afternoon, the evening, sleeps so peacefully, smoothed by long fingers, asleep, tired, or it malingers, stretched on the floor here beside you and me. Should I, after tea and cakes and ices, have the strength to force the moment to its crisis? But though I have wept and fasted, wept and prayed, though I have seen my head grown slightly bald, brought in upon a platter, I am no prophet, and here is no great matter. I have seen the moment of my greatness flicker, and I have seen the eternal footman hold my coat and sneaker, and in short, I was afraid. And would it have been worth it after all, after the cups, the marmalade, the tea, among the porcelain, among some talk of you and me, would it have been worthwhile to have bitten off the matter with a smile, to have squeezed the universe into a ball, to roll it towards some overwhelming question, to say, I am Lazarus, come from the dead, come back to tell you all, I shall tell you all. If one settling a pillow by her head should say, that is not what I meant at all, that is not it at all. And would it have been worth it after all? Would it have been worthwhile after the sunset, the dooryards and the sprinkled streets, after the novels, after the teacups, after the skirts that trail along the floor, and this and so much more? It is impossible to say just what I mean, but as if a magic lantern threw the nerves in patterns on a screen. Would it have been worthwhile if one settling a pillow or throwing off a shawl and turning toward the window should say, that is not it at all, that is not what I meant at all? No, I am not Prince Hamlet, nor was meant to be. I am an attendant lord, one that will do to swell a progress, start a scene or two, advise the prince, no doubt an easy tool, differential, glad to be of use, politic, cautious and meticulous, full of high sentence, but a bit obtuse, at times indeed almost ridiculous, almost at times the fool. I grow old, I grow old. I shall wear the bottoms of my trousers rolled. Shall I part my hair behind? Do I dare to eat a peach? I shall wear white flannel trousers and walk upon the beach. I have heard the mermaids singing each to each. I do not think that they will sing to me. I have seen them riding seaward on the waves, combing the white hair of the waves' blonde back. When the wind blows the water white and black, we have lingered in the chambers of the sea by seagulls wreathed with seaweed red and brown, till human voices wake us and we drown. following is an attempt to understand and unravel the poem. The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock by T.S. Eliot, one of the profoundly iconic poets ever, is a defining work of early modernist English poetry. Through the use of free verse, irregular rhyme, shifting imagery, allusions that add a deeper layer of meaning, an experimental form, and blending of personal and universal experience that was radically different from the lyrical and romantic thematic framework prevalent in the 19th century poetry. The poem encapsulates the overwhelming morbidity of modern urban life. A deep rumination on the themes of urban solitude, the disillusionment of contemporary life, alienation, time, existence, death, and rejuvenation, the poem is fragmentary in structure. Through a series of stunning images and abrupt visual transitions, Eliot sketches the disjointed inner life of Prufrock, who carries the deep anxieties of humanity in an alien and shallow social ambience. While the title refers to Rudyard Kipling's poem, The Love Song of Dyal, which explores the themes of love and inner conflict, the name of the protagonist, J. Alfred Prufrock, points to Eliot's habit of writing his name at times as T. Stearns Eliot instead of T.S. Eliot. The epigraph, taken from Canto 27 of Inferno in Dante's Divine Comedy, captures the response of the ghost of Guido da Montefeltro, a 13th century Italian military strategist who was condemned to hell in Dante's epic for providing fraudulent counsel when asked by Dante who he is. Guido agrees to speak about himself as he believes Dante is also trapped in hell and would never return to earth, and therefore he can speak without the fear of his words being exposed in the world of the living. Like Guido, Prufrock is also burdened by a deep sense of self-doubt and alienation and doesn't think anyone would ever pay attention to his internal monologue. The opening lines, with the image of the evening being spread out against the sky like a patient etherized upon a table, unsettle the expectations triggered by what the title Love Song implies. The anesthetized evening, sandwiched between day and night and life and death, reflects Prufrock's foggy mental landscape that lacks clarity and conviction. He is in a state of limbo where everything is vague and uncertain. Written as a dramatic monologue where a character shares his thoughts and feelings with himself, another character, or the reader, the poem moves through a series of visual backdrops like the changing colors in a kaleidoscope. The seemingly fragmentary scenes are held together by Prufrock's weary yet reverberating voice and the recurring metaphors that reflect the underlying themes. Through a string of captivating images, Eliot paints the morbidity of modern urban life. The poem transitions from half-deserted streets that follow like a tedious argument to the domesticity of a room where women come and go talking of Michelangelo. It then transitions to pools that stand in rains and the soot that falls from chimneys, and to the yellow fog personified as a cat that rubs its muzzle on the window panes, licks its tongue into the corners of the evening, slips by the terrace, makes a sudden leap, and falls asleep. Prufrock prefers to retreat and descend instead of daring to pose overwhelming questions about human relationships, existence, life, and death. He wonders if he dares disturb the universe by posing deep questions concerning both mundane and profound experiences and immanent and transcendent realities. The poem then ponders over time for visions and revisions. Prufrock is trapped in time when he struggles with 100 indecisions and when decisions and revisions reverse within a minute. The inner stagnancy forces Prufrock to measure out his life with coffee spoons. He listens to voices that die with the dying fall. He sees himself as being pinned on the wall and therefore is left with no option but to wriggle in pain. The braceleted arms don't elicit a favorable reaction from Prufrock because he has known them already. The perfume from a dress which possibly points to a romantic interlude makes him digress. He perceives himself as a crab that scuttles across the floors of seas, which are surprisingly silent with a pair of ragged claws. Burdened by indecision, he doesn't know how to begin the trip he has set out to undertake along with his companion. The repeated question, "How should I begin or presume?" points to a deepening crisis. The evening that is spread out on the table after being etherized is later stretched on the floor where it sleeps numbed by the sedative. Prufrock is not sure if the evening is indeed tired or if it pretends to be sick. For him, modern urban life that aimlessly meanders like a half-deserted street is marked by weariness and pretension. Therefore, Prufrock doesn't have the strength to force the moment or his existence to its crisis. As the evening sleeps beside him, Prufrock says he is not a prophet like John the Baptist and therefore he cannot offer metaphysical solutions for the crisis of purposeless and meaningless existence. As the inner turmoil exacerbates, he weeps, fasts and prays, but the answer still evades him, that leaves him afraid and unsure of himself. He is also not the biblical character of Lazarus, who was resurrected and hence knew the secrets of life and death. However, Prufrock's repeated assertion, "I have known them all," mirrors the words of Tiresias in T.S. Eliot's iconic poem, The Wasteland, where the seer says, "I have forsuffered all." Tiresias, the blind prophet in Greek mythology who was once a woman, has a deeper understanding of human predicament and is known for his ability to read the future. Though Prufrock is not a prophet, he shares the agony of a seer who peeks far into an apocalyptic future for himself and humanity and is hence perturbed. Prufrock is so confined in a moment of alarming indecision that it is impossible for him to say what he means, while his companion repeatedly reminds that is not what she meant at all, pointing to the impassable gap between what is meant and what is said. It also reflects the yawning chasm in human relationships in a barren urban world. The acute self-doubt prevents Prufrock from biting off the matter that troubles him, squeezing the universe into a ball and then rolling it towards the overwhelming question. By connecting the question with the universe, Prufrock seems to suggest that the agony that boils within him pertains not only to himself but to the entire humanity. Battered by indecision and procrastination, Shakespeare's Hamlet, Prufrock's illustrious predecessor, was torn between to be or not to be. But Hamlet at least knew what his crisis was. Prufrock sees himself as a mere attendant lord and an obtuse and ridiculous fool, a reference to Polonius, the counselor of the Shakespearean tragedy's ultimate villain Claudius. On the one hand, Prufrock identifies himself with John the Baptist, Lazarus and Hamlet, but on the other hand, he denies the similarity with those characters who have confronted deep inner crisis and death. By contradicting himself, Prufrock sinks deep into indecisiveness and self-doubt. Then, weary of the fact that he is growing old, Prufrock wonders if he should eat a peach wear white flannel trousers and walk upon the beach where the mysterious mermaids sing. As the poem ends, Prufrock and his companion linger in the chambers of the sea and drown till human voices wake them. Contrary to what the title suggests, this is not a love poem in the conventional sense, but rather a deep rumination on human existence in a world that is shallow and peripheral, governed by vanity and snobbishness. Prufrock wants to lead his companion or confidant, who could be his altered self or the reader, to the overwhelming question, but stops short of revealing what the question is. In fact, the poem is a profound question that is never asked. The shallow urban world of peripheral transactions and flimsy relationships is so dreary that Prufrock is not only unable to find a solution to his existential agony, but doesn't even know what his crisis is. To pose profound questions about his existence, he should first identify what is plaguing his predicament. Prufrock represents the modern urban mortal who is in search of his dilemma before attempting to find solutions. Prufrock is humbled by the absence of the answer to his profound question that triggers other deep queries. His predicament is defined by the vacuum left by the ever-evading answer that chokes his throat and leaves him paralyzed like the etherized evening. Prufrock exists in the shaded and benumbed evening, where reality is hidden in the vast hues of light and darkness. Truth doesn't have a specific shape, and questions don't elicit definite answers. Eliot showcases rare poetic brilliance by holding back the overwhelming question, whose answer possibly points to the meaninglessness of peripheral and transactional human relationships, the emptiness of existence in an urban world, the unkind passage of time, and the certainty of death. The held-back query lends immense depth to the poem. Once answered, a question, however profound it is, becomes irrelevant and nullified. By leaving the question unanswered, Eliot liberates the poem's key themes from the specificity of an answer. The overwhelming question is fired beyond the confines of time into human consciousness, where it triggers endless deep queries whose resonance reverberates eternally. Sleep, which is presented both as an image and as a metaphor, makes repeated appearances in the poem, which is known for its thematic complexity and apparent ambiguity. From the anesthetized evening that is in a state of oblivion to the afternoon that tirelessly stretches on the floor, sleep represents Prufrock's inner state of withdrawal, inaction, and paralysis. The image of the floor too appears repeatedly, from the floor of the house to the floors of the silent seas. Like the table in the opening lines, the floor also facilitates sleep, pushing Prufrock into a state of forgetfulness. Time is a recurring theme in Eliot's poems. In The Wasteland, time is presented as a fragmented, cyclical and interconnected tapestry where past, present and future are interwoven through allusions and mythological references. In Four Quartets, which perhaps explores the theme of time deeper than any other literary work ever written, past, present and future are enveloped by one another, and time is presented as a continuum of change that wears away the fabric of existence. Time is a key theme in Prufrock's love song too. Time for decisions, indecisions, visions and revisions. Time that slows down as Prufrock measures life with coffee spoons. Prufrock is reminded that his legs are thin and his hair is receding, pointing to aging and the passage of time. As he approaches the seashore, Prufrock becomes aware of his perishable body and reminds himself he is growing old. alluding to the 3rd chapter of Ecclesiastes in the Bible that says, "There is a time for everything." The poem reminds that there is a time to weep and laugh, to plant and uproot, and to be born and die. Like the yellow smoke that makes an enveloping presence by curling above the house, time wraps the poem like a transparent veil. 4/4 says, "Time is unredeemable," suggesting time cannot be recovered or salvaged once it is past, and pointing to the transient nature of life and the human struggle against mortality. In the love song, time slows down and confines Prufrock like smoke, making his predicament unredeemable. Images of stagnation and death link as Prufrock moves from muttering retreats to the seashore where the wind blows the water white and black. The etherized evening, deserted and narrow streets, the yellow fog personified as a cat, pools that stand in drains, the soot that falls from chimneys, the crab that scuttles across the floors of the silent seas, the eternal footman who holds Prufrock's coat and sneakers, mermaids wreathed with seaweeds, and the chambers of the sea, all seem to evoke the certainty of death. However, the human voices referred to in the concluding lines, voices that are capable of waking up the drowned, leave a glint of hope of rejuvenation. The poem, which starts when two of them, Prufrock and his companion, begin their journey to the overwhelming question, ends in the first-person plural narrative after being carried by Prufrock's lone voice, reflecting a circular structure, one that ends where it begins and begins where it ends, creating a perennial loop. In that perspective, drowning at the end leaves enough room for interpretation as a metaphor for baptism, where death by water represents a symbolic demise of the old self, leading to a spiritual rebirth. That Eliot wrote a poem of such depth in the formative years of his writing career, he was just 22 when he wrote the poem's first draft, speaks volumes about his poetic genius.